The inaugural Paris Peace Forum, billed as a Davos for democracy, wraps up today. It's the brainchild of French President Emmanuel Macron, and it's intended to be part of the fight back against nationalism. Symbolically, it opened on Armistice Day with speeches by Macron, by the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and by the UN Chief Antonio Guterres. We can now welcome to the programme Olivia Caeymaex, who heads the Peace Programme at the Quaker Council for European Affairs in Brussels, and who's just come from the forum. Thanks for being with us, Olivia.
Thanks a lot, Amanda.
Now, this event is intended to become a yearly gathering. General themes are multilateralism and unity, reconciliation, that sort of thing. Firstly, tell us what goes on at a peace forum, and when we talk about peacemaking, what are we really talking about?
So those are two very big questions. What happens at a peace forum? Many different things. First, you have a diversity of actors joining to discuss topics around peace. There are different forums also. In this one in particular, you had what they called labs or bigger discussions with the public, panelists from different environments and backgrounds to talk about very different topics, from arms control to women, peace and security, to the issue of health in peace building, and also the role of the private sector. So first, of course, the conferences, the discussions with the public. And secondly, also the stands. You had around 120 stands where organizations from different backgrounds were represented and had a chance to present their work.
Now, just getting back to peacemaking, I understand that's like the structure of the forum, but I'm just wondering concretely, what sorts of issues, what topics should we be turning our attention to promote a more peaceful world? And what sorts of things generally do we see discussed at this type of event?
So I mentioned a few topics, but basically there were almost, I would say, 50 events that took place. So it's pretty broad. But I think it's important it is, because peace building needs to encompass an integrated approach to peace building. You can't just have governments doing mediation alone. That's not going to work. You need solutions at very different levels. First, obviously, you need to do a good analysis of what the problems are, and then you need responses at very different levels, on the environmental level, on the business sector level, to make sure people are integrated, on the education level, with peace education, for example, and obviously on agriculture, fisheries. You can imagine the amount of levels of sectors that need to be addressed to bring peace, build peace, or prevent conflict in some situations.
And does all of this gel with your organisation, which is a not-for-profit, the Quaker Council for European Affairs? Does this all fit in exactly with your agenda, or is there something particular that you guys are looking to promote?
Well, this specific forum had 5 pillars: inclusive economy, new technologies, development, peace and security, and the environment. Those are sectors that are certainly part of what we think peace building should be, but we're thinking about it even broader than that. You need to be thinking about urban planning. You need to be thinking about agriculture. You need to be thinking about education. Basically, almost like every single ministry needs to be involved in peace. Obviously, I'm giving very broad lines now, but it very much depends on the context that you're dealing with. A context like the Democratic Republic of the Congo will need different things than a context like Central African Republic. So you need a very good conflict analysis before you engage. And you need some self-reflection also on whether you are the right actor to be acting. On your question on whether this is what our organization does, yes, we work in the realm of 1, human rights, and 2, peace building. We advocate peace building through a report that we publish called Building Peace Together, which gives concrete examples of ways to do peace building through 11 sectors, some of which I already mentioned: media, communications, education, justice, security, diplomacy, etc. And the message of this report also, and that I think needs to be clearer, is that everybody has a role to play in peace building. It's not just the governments or just civil society or, just one part of society that is responsible for this. Everyone from the teacher to the parent to the private sector also that we need to be engaging more with needs to be engaged in peace building and in conflict management, whatever the sector or the environment we're working with.
Right. So it sounds like it's about addressing the problems that any particular society might be facing, not necessarily conflict specifically, but addressing challenges in order to ensure a more peaceful, a more cohesive society.
Absolutely, yeah. Peace building or peacemaking actually means that you address the root causes of conflict. That's what you need to be doing. If you want to engage, you need to be addressing those root causes if you actually want to make a difference and build peace, where there might already be some pockets of peace, or where you might want to transform conflict so that it doesn't turn to violence, but actually is addressed through dialogue or other means.
Right, you said it there. Okay, addressing the root causes of conflict. Now, the idea behind the Paris Peace Forum is to get countries working together. There's this term that's been bandied about, multilateralism. It's about working together towards a common goal, tackling global challenges together. Is this as complicated as it sounds, getting countries to work together? Or, does this mean getting solid commitments at the end of it all? Or is it more about driving momentum?
I think there's probably a bit of both. We all know that there's a bit of a crisis of multilateralism today, not least with very big changes on the geopolitical dynamics. We know of Brexit, we know of US politics changing, but we also know of new emerging countries like China taking more space on the international scene. So I think, yes, it might appear more complicated, but I think there's also a whole lot of opportunities maybe we're not seizing. There's a lot more actors to engage with today than maybe there was in the past, or maybe it was recognized as of in the past. I think there's an opportunity for member states to work more with civil society, with academics or the private sector, etc., on these ethical issues. And we need to be thinking more broadly about that. Is it difficult to get member states to work more together? I think it depends on what topic. It's quite interesting if you look at dynamics at the Security Council at the United Nations, that they will agree on one thing and be best friends, and the following day the same people will be hitting each other because they disagree on a topic. But one way to start is really to try to find common ground between different member states and start from there and then try to make it grow. And certainly I think that it's not because it appears like there's a crisis for multilateralism that we need to question it, or that we shouldn't be seizing opportunities of different ways of doing it. And certainly we need to be thinking of innovative ways of doing multilateralism and engaging with new actors.
Okay. There were at this event warnings against Trump-style populism. Donald Trump didn't go to this event. I suppose there are no surprises there, but other leaders who are also driving nationalist agendas, such as Russia's Vladimir Putin, Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey, they did attend. Is there any real expectations that these countries will commit to ideas that perhaps don't fit in with their domestic agendas? How important is it to get people like Putin and Erdogan on board?
Well, I can't really comment on their intention or on hopes or expectations of their commitment. But what I do hope is that by just standing there together, they might have been inspired by some of the things that were said, by the initiative, and certainly by the open door that some of the European leaders are showing. And I think by shaking that hand, by opening the door, it's already an opportunity to work together and to find some common ground. So certainly I think that attitude can open up some hope, at least. And as we all know, sometimes there are some discussions that happen behind doors that we don't know about. So certainly I hope that this was an opportunity for some of these leaders to broach on some topics that maybe they don't have a chance to broach on in other endeavors.
Right. Now, Emmanuel Macron has been last week touring the battlefields of the Great War, and he's been warning of the dangers of slipping back into the nationalism of the 1930s. His approval ratings are very low. Recently, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said that she's going to step aside as Chancellor by 2021. And I'm just wondering if the fact that these two European leaders, main advocates of multilateralism, the fact that they might not be in a position to drive that agenda in the long term. I'm just wondering how much of a worry is that for people in the peace-building business, such as yourself?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I understand that there's a reason to worry, but again, I'm an optimistic, and I want to think that we're also at a time and an age today where society is a lot more active, where social media, youth, people are a lot more engaged, and hopefully will continue to vote for people who can stand for these values of democracy, of humanity, of human rights, of justice, and for peace, of course. And I think we also have to recognize that there are other European member states who might stand for those values, and certainly supporting them and helping them to champion these values will be part of our work.
Indeed. Well, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for being on the show, Olivia Caeymaex.
Thank you very much.